Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're really unpacking the sources surrounding that terrible event involving Air India flight AI 171. This was back on June 12th, 2025.
That's right. We're looking at a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, tail number VTANB. It was taking off from Ahmedabad in India, heading for London Gatwick.
A fairly new plane, too, right? Delivered in 2013.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes this, tragically, the very first fatal hull loss for the 787 type since it entered service.
Wow. And hull loss, just so we're clear, that means the aircraft was essentially destroyed.
Correct. Completely destroyed.
Right. And the first details, the ones coming out in those initial source reports, they were just incredibly abrupt. Shocking.
Extremely. Reports suggest a Mayday call went out maybe 30 seconds after getting airborne.
Yeah.
And then the crash followed almost right after that.
30 seconds. That's almost no time at all.
It really isn't. To declare an emergency and then lose the aircraft so quickly, I mean, right after leaving the ground, it points towards something catastrophic happening immediately during, the most critical phase of flight.
And the crash itself, it impacted a building.
Yes, sadly, a building at the BJ Medical College there in Ahmedabad, a student hostel, I believe the sources said.
And the scale of this, it's just immense on multiple levels. On board, the sources are saying 231 people lost their lives out of 242.
Just one survivor. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh is named in the reports as the sole survivor. But like you said, the impact wasn't just the plane.
No, the ground toll is significant too. At least 38 fatalities reported at that medical college hostel. Just devastating.
Absolutely. And those early reports, the ones the sources picked up on immediately, they started focusing on a couple of key things, didn't they?
Yeah, two main points seem to emerge quickly. The landing gear possibly staying down after takeoff, and then potential dual engine failure.
Right. And that combination, I mean, if that turns out to be accurate, leaving the gear down creates huge amounts of drag, makes it really hard to climb to gain speed.
And then losing both engines on top of that. You've got no thrust to fight the drag or, well, basically to stay in the air.
Exactly. It's a scenario with very, very little recovery time, especially being so low right after takeoff. So I guess our mission here is to see what these sources actually tell us about the key facts, as they were known initially, and how that investigation started to take shape.
Okay, so who's actually leading this huge investigation effort, according to the sources?
Well, it's India's AAIB, the
Yeah.
Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. They're taking the lead, naturally.
Makes sense. It happened there.
But crucially, the sources say they got immediate help. The UK's aviation authorities, the US NTSB folks, and Boeing, the manufacturer, they were all involved right from day one.
So a big international team then, right from the beginning.
Definitely. And they found the key evidence pretty quickly, didn't they? The sources confirmed both black boxes were recovered.
Right, the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. That's always critical in these situations.
Absolutely vital. That's where the core data, the sequence of events, the pilot inputs, the system parameters,
Yeah.
hopefully it's all there.
And it sounds like investigators aren't just focusing on one single thing. The sources suggest they're looking quite broadly.
Yeah, casting a wide net, it seems, which is good practice. They're looking hard at that dual engine failure possibility. Of course, that's front and center. But also things like, did the RAT deploy? The ram air turbine for emergency power.
Uh-huh, the little propeller.
Exactly. They're analyzing pilot actions in those critical seconds, checking all the mechanical systems, obviously, and even looking at external factors like bird strikes. It's always a known risk during takeoff and initial climb.
So ruling things in, ruling things out, standard procedure, but absolutely crucial here given how fast it happened.
Precisely. Covering all the bases early on is key.
And we're also seeing action from the regulatory side, the DGCA in India. What are the sources saying there?
Yes, swift action reported in the sources. They've apparently asked Air India for training logs for the pilots, the dispatchers involved. They've ordered emergency drills at airports to sort of review readiness procedures.
Okay, checking preparedness.
And initiated inspections on Air India's other 787s in their fleet. These are all immediate steps, aimed at immediate safety reinforcement and just gathering as much background information as possible.
Which you'd expect, of course. But beyond the technical investigation, the human cost that the sources describe is just staggering.
It really is. The victims came from all over. Reports mention at least 169 Indians, 53 British nationals, 7 Portuguese, 1 Canadian, a very international group on board.
And the grief, it ripples outward so much, doesn't it? The sources mention families, entire communities impacted. There was that one particularly poignant story about a family in Ahmedabad.
Yeah, the sources mentioned a family losing a sibling to a heart attack after hearing the news about the crash involving their other sibling. It just underscores how deep and wide the impact of something like this goes. It's not just the passengers and crew directly involved.
No, it connects back to the whole picture, really. This
Yeah.
isn't just about investigating the mechanics of an accident. It's about understanding this whole chain of events with such devastating, layered consequences.
So, yeah, summing up what the sources are showing us at this initial stage,
Yeah.
it's clearly a complex, ongoing investigation. India's AAIB is leading, but with significant international support, which is vital.
Right. The black boxes are recovered and are obviously key. Investigators are exploring multiple avenues, engines, pilot actions, systems, the RET, birds, you name it.
And the DGCA, the regulator, has stepped in with immediate actions, checks, inspections, demanding logs, reviewing procedures.
But underneath all that structure and process, the sources constantly remind us of the immense human cost. Not just for those on the flight, but for families, communities, and even people on the ground tragically caught up in it.
Exactly.